In the realm of the unexplained, shadow people are an all too familiar concept. Stories of these mysterious entities date as far back as the written word itself, and sightings have only grown more common as the years progressed. These beings are often seen in the dark of night, lingering in your peripheral and quickly jumping away the moment you dare to look in their direction. The bolder of these beings have been witnessed watching from doorways or ominously standing over victims locked in the thralls of a sleep paralysis episode. What's far less common, however, are accounts wherein the witness makes physical contact with one of these entities. To see something may be haunting, but can easily be rationalized away as a figment of the imagination. To physically feel something with your own hands and experience the indescribable cold thereafter is an entirely different story. And that is where our night of terror begins. We'll see you on the inside. Welcome back to Sleep with the Lights On. My name is Scott.
I didn't get to say welcome back.
Well, I did. I am joined, as always, by America's favorite wet blanket, my father-in-law, Christian, renowned skeptic.
Renowned.
At this point, renowned.
But a kind skeptic, not like those other...
Just a regular old skeptic. You know the ones. The ones that are always commenting on YouTube videos. Those guys.
Really?
You're not like that just yet, but give it time.
I don't use... if it's not a positive comment or helpful, it's not worth me.
And that's fine.
Yeah, that's just me, though.
That's fine. As mentioned in the opening monologue, we are starting today's episode off with a very interesting shadow person encounter, a very unique one. But before we get into that, if you are new to the show, first of all, welcome, subscribe to the page, and like, comment, send it to your grandmother, whatever works for you. If you have a story of your own that you would like to send in to hear on the show, send it into the gang@thefreakydeaky.com. And just in the subject line, put Sleep with the Lights On story or something along those lines. And we'll take care of it from there. You can find us on social media at Freaky Deaky Pod, pretty much wherever, except TikTok. That's at TFT Paranormal, if that's more your speed. I'm not going to weigh you down with any more. Let's dive into this first story, shall we? Christian, how are you doing today?
I am stupendous.
I don't believe you. Let's get in. How does it feel to have someone not believe you, Christian? Feels normal. Yeah.
I guess you're right.
As is tradition, this first story comes to us from Political Amoeba. And it's called, I Touched a Shadow Person.
Did they like it?
You're thinking of a different thing. And that's okay. It goes, this happened a few months ago, and it was at the time very cold where I live. This caused me to have the heater on a very high setting in order to not freeze. Hey, we are in Alaska. We get it, all right?
We've been there.
I was laying in bed half asleep, and I felt someone sit down on the bed beside me. I figured it was a friend or sibling of mine playing a practical joke. I look up to see a jet black figure sitting at the foot of my bed. This figure had no facial features of any sort. It was just a vaguely humanoid black shape. I still thought that this was some kind of sick joke. I don't know how you'd pull that off, but sure.
Yeah, who's joking on, or who's playing the joke on you?
Steven Spielberg. Anyway, so I slowly turned the lights on. That's what you do. That's the show.
Turn the lights on? Oh.
Yeah. You'll get it eventually.
Oh.
This didn't change anything. The black shape was still there, with no change to the color. It was as if it was sucking the light out of the room. I reached out to touch the strange being, and it did not react in the slightest until my hand was mere inches from what would be the face, at which point the shape began to flinch away. As I made contact with the being, my hand was consumed with the coldest sensation I have ever experienced. It felt like my hand was in liquid nitrogen. The creature emitted a shrill sound like a broken violin and then vanished. The strangest thing about this incident was that I wasn't the only one who experienced it. A neighbor told me that she had experienced the same thing at a similar time, and the shrieking sound that the creature made was heard by other people nearby. I was the only one who touched the creature, but other victims reported that their shadow people vanished just after the loud shriek. As of yet, the shadow people have yet to make any other appearance. Just as a side note, Only one other person actually saw the shadow person that night, at least as far as I know. Her story is somewhat different. As opposed to being awoken by the being, she walked into a room to see the being standing next to her bed. She backed out of the room only to hear the shrieking sound coming from inside the bedroom. She looked back inside to see the creature vanish. That is interesting.
That is a future movie.
I mean, you hear about shadow people are fairly common. You know, the experiences people see, usually it's like, I was watching TV and something walked past and it was pitch black and blah, blah. And I even have a couple shadow figure experiences of my own. But I can tell you one thing. I have not ever heard a story where someone physically touched it.
First off, that person's crazy.
That person is crazy. That is not the first thought when you see something like that. You're like, the light is on. It's still there. You know what?
Actually, though, thinking about it, I might do that.
Would you? Would you? Because you'd think it's in your brain, right? You'd be like,
right.
I can't.
I'd be like, let me touch this thing and see what's going on.
True.
But then here's another thing that I don't think I've heard too much of from shadow person stories.
What's that?
Making a noise.
Yeah, that shrieking kind of shrill violin sound.
I can't think.
You can picture it though. That description is very.
That was a good description.
Good. Yeah,
I don't think I've ever even heard many stories of them making noises. They're just there.
That's true. Yeah,
and maybe that's just not described in a lot of the stories. But
what do you think about other people seeing shadow people at the same time?
Okay,
like the neighbor.
As you were reading that, I had a couple of thoughts. First thought is
government.
No, that's
okay. Well, I took a stab in the dark.
Good try. They're usually the root of all evil.
Wow.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Well,
but anyway, moving on. First off, I thought, what kind of place are they where people are talking about their shadow people?
Like, I want to live in that neighborhood. I'll tell you what, go outside. Do you see any demons yesterday? No.
That would be, would you though? I mean, maybe you shouldn't live in a place where you're able to talk about the
open
demons.
Discussion. That's where it's nice.
That's too many demons. Okay, in this
just
case,
a few, yeah.
I don't want to call a shadow person a demon.
You're right. Very derogatory term.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
interdimensional traveler.
Yeah, shadow person is an individual being of shadow, not necessarily demonic.
Exactly.
We can't just throw that on there because it's scary.
Sure.
Not everything scary are demons.
Some things that are scary are demons.
Maybe.
You're right.
If you believe in demons.
Which we do here.
That story is nuts, though.
Yeah.
Just all the different aspects of it are weird and
strange. I think the fact that the other ones disappeared as soon as that one made the shrill noise is interesting. It almost lends like an alien kind of vibe to it. You know, like you're cloaked. You're not. It's not that they're figures of shadow, but they're cloaked of some kind or something like that, infiltrating the houses in a neighborhood. Maybe I don't know, man. I grabbed this story because I was like, I've looked at tons of shadow people stories. We have episodes of the podcast dedicated to shadow people stories.
I read them all the time too, and
I know
I've never heard one like that.
Exactly. So I was like, this is fitting.
But you made a mention of aliens.
I did, yes.
That would almost make the story better, because if you have an infestation of shadow beings, you're welcome to the people that know that. That's scary. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah, what's the purpose behind this?
Why are they getting together and terrorizing this town?
And it wasn't even like, well, I mean, I guess it kind of is terrorizing, because it's not like they disappeared when the lights turned on or anything like that. Like, they weren't trying to be secretive about it.
The thing sounded like a broken violin.
Yeah, that's a scary sound.
Yeah, there's nothing kind about that.
You're absolutely right. What do you guys think? Sound off in the comments what you think about this story and what you think the reason behind this particular encounter could be. And if your reason is, well, the brain makes up crazy things, you can keep that to yourself, friend. Not interested in that, okay?
I am.
Christian is. You can be his friend. Anyway, we're going to get into this second story here, which is called Me, But Not Me. Yeah, this next story comes to us from Penis Douglas.
Like Charlie Brown and the Peanuts?
You're doing it again. You know damn well what I said, Christian. And it's called Me, But Not Me.
I'm just plausible deniability for the censors.
Sure. Algorithms like, maybe he didn't say penis. It's fine.
You keep saying it. They're going to catch on.
That's true. Anyway, the story goes, my boyfriend saw me, but it wasn't me. I'm writing this in a bit of a panic because some weird stuff just happened and it reminded me of a strange experience my boyfriend had a while back. We live in a ground level apartment in Nashville with good security, key cards to access the buildings. A while back, maybe like 6 months ago, my boyfriend called me around 2 p.m. on a weekday with a strange question. He asked me if I was standing outside our front door. I responded with the truth, which was that I was at work still. He started fully freaking out, saying that he was playing RimWorld and heard a loud knock at the door. He checked the peephole and saw who he thought was me, allegedly wearing the same clothes I'd left in that morning.
Allegedly.
Yeah, she doesn't even believe him. But I never used our front door. I have a key, so I'd let myself in. And not to mention, I was 20 minutes away in an office. He said that when he heard the knock and started approaching the door, he got a sort of sickly feeling like something was very wrong. And when he looked through the peephole and saw me, he almost threw up from the feeling. Not what you want to feel when you see your significant other, if you're wondering. This figure standing at the door was wearing a lanyard like I wear for work, dressed in the same clothes, all that. But her head was down and she was standing in a way that he described as, quote, really off. He was too scared to look through the peephole again and just hunkered down in the living room while we stayed on the phone. Also, disclaimer here, my boyfriend is a bit of an over-exaggerator at times, so I acknowledge that. But I'm also a firm believer in the spooky things in life, having my own paranormal experiences through the years with ghosts and cryptids. So fast forward to today, we're gaming at like midnight and I hear a loud knock at the door. He didn't hear it, but I waited to see if there was another and decided it was probably just him knocking his chair into his desk or something. 10 minutes later, there's another knock, and we both hear it this time. We look at each other and then go to the door to look out. There's no one out there, but there is a spot to the left of the door that isn't visible through the peephole, so I tell him not to open the door to check in case someone is there waiting for that very thing to happen. I go to close the blinds and keep listening for anything strange, but nothing else comes. This whole thing brought up the previous story of my apparent doppelganger, and I wanted to post it in case anyone had any similar experiences with mimic-type things in urban areas. I myself had a run-in with a Wendigo when I lived up north, but I find it hard to believe those or skinwalkers would be here in the metro area. Well, let's not put it past a Wendigo to get a day job, all right?
I would. Wendigos still mess around with cities.
You think they're too lazy to work, Christian?
No, there's other...
Hot takes.
There's other evil forces that are more powerful than them in the city.
Working the big businesses.
Yeah, they're old school. They handle the rural communities, the isolated communities, them and skinwalkers. I don't know, man. It's a crazy story.
Yeah, we've gone over a few different doppelganger stories over the years, and every single one of them freaks me out.
They are pretty freaky, even if I don't believe them. But,
yeah.
You know, one thing I want to point out before we get into the deep discussion of this. It's a wonderful world where a couple can game together.
Wow.
Back in my day, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah. And back in your day, video games weren't a thing either. So
whatever.
So that checks out.
I've been playing video games for a long time.
But there you go. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. Anyway, skip that part. That was dumb. But anyway.
I'm going to keep it in just so people can know. It's strange, man. I don't... Like, there's obviously shapeshifter lore, right? You don't hear about it too much. But there is technically stories of shapeshifters, or at least in the realm of the unexplainable and paranormal, there's shapeshifters, right?
Right.
So is it a doppelganger or is it a shapeshifter at that point? You know,
does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. But like,
it's a problem.
But there's like that nagging question at the back of it where it's like, what did this thing want? You know, and if you open the door, what happens? Is it like a black-eyed kid story where you open the door and they're like, please let us use your rice cooker or whatever they say.
That's where I have a problem with this story a little bit. That guy should open the door.
But would you?
Yeah.
Even you call your significant other and you're like, hey, are you outside? And they're like, no. You would still open the door?
I'd be like, who the hell is this? Why are you acting like him? Why are you wearing the same? I mean, I wouldn't come out, open the door being like that, but I would open the door to see what was going on.
Yeah. It vaguely, remember that story, the guy or whatever that his girlfriend came home, was like rampaging through the apartment, throwing shit around, packing her shit. And he's like, what is wrong? What's going on? She just packs her things, leaves, gets in a taxi and hops out. And he's standing outside like, what the hell just happened? And then he turns around and his girlfriend's pulling up in a taxi and she gets out. His girlfriend was actually like the daughter of a detective or something that thought that guy was cheating on his daughter. So looked at the security footage of the apartment and saw this all go down. It's wild, man. Like, is it like a slip in time? Is some kind of like weird piercing dimensional divide?
You know, one thing I thought, 'cause that's a fun story.
Yeah.
Maybe that guy had a guilty conscience. Maybe he was cheating and he just panicked and hallucinated all that.
Worst possible explanation for that story.
That is a pretty bad one, but it just made me think, like, there's so many different things that could be going on.
Yeah.
That's why you have to open the door and find out. You can't.
So what if there's no coming back from that? Like, what if because even the person, even he felt like sick to his stomach when he was approaching the door. And when he saw her on the other side, he felt like he was going to throw up. Like, that's like your body telling you, yo, danger, do not pass this threshold.
Then you pick up the baseball bat and open the front door.
I don't know if you can attack dimensional creatures and or doppelgangers with baseball bats and win that fight. But I like where your head's at, though. You
can't run in fear for the rest of your life after. And that's what happens if you see something like that. You never can let that go, and you always wonder.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it would be in the back of your mind constantly. But
wouldn't it be better just to go out in a blaze of glory than question reality for 50, 60 more years?
No. You'd get over it at some point. Actually, you'd be on your deathbed and be like, what the actual hell was that?
You would just put it in a locked space in your brain, and it would cause you trauma for the rest of your life.
As is tradition, yes. So anyway, what do you guys think? We're not in this alone, all right? Chris and I do not have the answers. We're here for your input. We want to hear your thoughts on these stories. Sound off. Sound on, but sound off in the comment. You get the idea. We're going to get into this final story, guys. And it is called Broken Mirror Nightmare.
Ooh. We were warned about that.
I really wish I had the soundboard. I don't have the soundboard when we do these videos, so I can't really make all the Christian sounds that I like to make.
No, I can't do it. I can't even do a real Christian sound.
Yeah, it sounds like Scooby-Doo or some shit.
I was trying to do some church music.
Anyway, Broken Mirror Nightmare.
Don't break a mirror.
Lived in an old 2-bedroom, 3-story walk-up for a time in my early 20s in Toronto. A few days after moving in, my roommate Mike chides me in the morning for banging on the wall that separated our bedrooms and pacing back and forth across the apartment at night. We just agreed he must have been dreaming or it was sounds from other apartments, as I had done no such thing. We agreed that it must have been nothing and left it at that, but this was a regular nightly occurrence. Shortly thereafter, I started noticing at certain times in my own bedroom the cloying smell of cheap women's perfume mixed with a damp, musty smell. We've all had those nights.
Never mind.
It's fine. We don't need to ask any further questions.
Yeah, let's not.
Imagine an old person's clothes left on a damp, musty basement floor near a litter box that wasn't being changed often enough, and you get the idea.
That's something I would never imagine.
Yeah, we kind of have to take a few moments to imagine that. That you got to peel back several layers to that stank onion.
I'm not taking any time.
To get that visual. Yeah. Christian is not having it.
Nope.
Anyway, what made it even weirder is that I would be filled with a sudden horrible sense of foreboding a few moments before the smell would begin. Mike flaked out and left only 4 months into our 1-year lease, which meant I was left footing the rent for the entire place until I could find another roommate. I had decided to try and sleep in his bedroom shortly after he moved to see if things would get better. The very first night I slept in his former room, I had an incredibly detailed and realistic nightmare of myself standing in the dimly lit bathroom of the apartment and cutting my own face with a large shard of glass.
Does that remind you of anything?
Kind of.
Well, we'll get back to it. Go.
Yeah. Cutting my own face with a large shard of glass while staring into the broken bathroom mirror. It was only broken in the dream. Soon after that, I started to hear the loud bangs at night and the flushing of the toilet in the bathroom. Several times, the hot water in the bathtub turned on full blast in the middle of the night. One of the freakier things that happened not too long before I moved is the time I was woken up by the TV blaring Poltergeist on City TV at about 2 in the morning. At the time, that channel would always play movies late at night, but the fact that the one time my analog TV, the turn a knob to change the channel or the volume, pull a knob, turn it off, turned on by itself at full blast was the time a movie like Poltergeist was playing. That is creepy. It's a no from me, man.
Poltergeist. The movie Poltergeist had a commercial that I had to mute every time it came on because it was so scary.
Really?
And I was a teenager. So I get it. Poltergeist is not.
Yeah, it's a creepy vibe.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Even if you don't believe that stuff, anything poltergeist coming on like that would be scary.
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
I mean, when I was in high school, the movie came, the Poltergeist, I don't remember which number, it might have been 2 or 3.
Yeah. I don't know if I've seen either of them outside of the first.
I think the second one is just as good, but there's an old priest, and I think I've mentioned it before on this podcast, but he's like yelling, "You are all gonna die," and he was so scary. That was just a scary character. I think anybody that watched that movie would agree.
And I think the reference you were referring to is Smile, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was like, maybe. And then I kept reading. I was like, oh, it's like the movie Smile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Once you get into that scene in Smile, you're stuck. That movie is not crazy.
Fun. Yeah, it's not. There's a lot of visuals in that movie that stay with you for a little bit.
And they set it up perfectly. That's what I was like feeling in a way with that dream.
Yeah.
It's just, it's pretty fascinating when people have those kind of dreams or those kind of experiences.
Yeah.
I don't, so I don't.
You don't have like nightmares and stuff like that?
No, nothing.
Yeah, I think we talked about this once before, yeah.
And if I do, it's not a very bad one.
Yeah, you're just like, oh no, I'm late on my taxes.
Something like that.
I messed up my taxes.
That's pretty vivid.
Now let me ask you this. Do you think this Mike roommate of his, one of the reasons he left was because he was having that dream as well? Because he stayed in his old room, and then he said Mike dipped out after 4 months into a 1-year lease.
You know, it could be something like maybe Mike doesn't believe in that kind of stuff, but that stuff is still traumatizing to experience, even if it's in a dream state.
Yeah,
and it would make you feel uneasy. You don't have to believe in this stuff to be creeped out by certain things.
There was one thing, I think, and we never got to look into it. Do you remember that house that Heather was talking about in the neighborhood she used to live in? Like we went there one night and we just kind of like scoped it out and looked around and stuff, looked in the windows.
Like a bunch of creepers.
I know, we're just like family in the living room. Like, what are you guys doing? No, it was vacant. But the story goes, and even the neighbor said that she saw someone walking around inside the house. There's like a ghostly figure of an old lady or something. But I remember Heather talking about the last family moved in there having these like recurring nightmares of crazy stuff. And I've never experienced something like that myself because I haven't lived in a house that is obviously like that haunted. You know, like I've had weird experiences and stuff like that, but they're usually one-offs or something like that. But to just have that kind of sense of dread every time you go to sleep, be like, please don't be the weird nightmare. That's all I ask. Anything but the weird nightmare. And then you go to sleep and you're like, oh no, I'm in the weird nightmare. You know, it's weird that hauntings can infiltrate your dreams, man. I don't fully grasp it. Like I believe it. I believe it happens. I've heard enough stories, but I don't understand how that happens.
There's like sanctity to your dreams where things like that should not be able to come into.
Yes.
And if they do, you're in trouble.
That is true. And you don't want that.
You know, being a skeptic, it's kind of funny that I did live in a house where weird things like that happened. Like all my weird experiences.
Same house.
Same exact house.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't tend to believe in all that stuff, but there were some weird things in that house.
Yeah.
And maybe I can chalk it up to that was the age I was at. I had a wild imagination. Who knows? But,
maybe. But I mean, maybe not, you know?
Yeah. I didn't live in that house for very long. I mean, a few years.
I think the dream thing, there's a lot of theories out there that when you dream, you're not just in your own subconscious or your own mind or whatever, but you're actually in a different plane of existence, you know? Right. Like you've heard those theories, right? Like whether or not there's any weight to them, probably not. But even the thought of that, like you're almost hopping into a different dimension or something like that, and you have an entirely different life in this plane, and then you pop back. Number one, what if this is the dream, and the other dimension is reality? Creepy, but entirely different show. It's just, I don't know. It's just weird. I get caught up on the dream thing, like entities or demons or ghosts or whatever it is inside a haunted abode. Somehow being able to put whatever they want into your head. Like, are they just hovering over you while you sleep and being like, like a Matrix type of thing? You know, they plug you in, be like, this is what I want you to see.
It would have to probably be something with just the energy in the air.
Yeah.
Because that would probably be, unless they were demons, which is not a thing.
Which is a definite thing.
They're not going to be able to get in, but the energy, if they were actual ghosts or spirits or whatever, might change. That could be how how they affect everything like that.
Yeah.
But also, I've recently read a theory that some of these experiences might be caused by infrasound produced by the place they're living, because it's
like a fan or something like that.
A fan, maybe it's not built quite right, so as it's aging, it's producing weird sounds that we can't hear, but our brain
possibly can
I mean,
feel. There's been studies on infrasound and stuff, and like that's actually how infrasound came out, was that like weird fan that people were having all these crazy feelings about in that one lab or whatever. But yeah, and that's a possible theory, you know, but that depends on if it's the same dream people are having, or if it's the same feeling or whatever. Like dreams are kind of hard. Like you can't have the same dream as someone without being like, there's something more to this than just what we've been told.
Well,
you know?
Even if that was something, and you're still having the same dream as somebody else, that's still pretty crazy. That's
it's wild,
almost impossible.
Almost impossible indeed.
But we've heard about it enough.
And I mean, hey, you guys have our opinions on these things. Let's hear what you got to say. What do you think about these? Actually, it's going to plague me because I don't have the answers to this. What do you think the reason behind like recurring nightmares and stuff in haunted houses are? How would these entities project themselves into your dream? What are your thoughts? Because I am at a loss. Christian has no idea what he's talking about ever. And that's just the way it goes, you know?
Hey, give us your thoughts. I find amazing information from people's comments.
That's true. And we love hearing from you guys. I think that pretty much wraps up. Christian, what was your favorite story of this episode?
My favorite story would be the first one.
The first one?
The shadow.
The shadow. It's a very interesting, it's intriguing to say the least, you know?
I could feel that story.
Yeah. And that person could feel that shadow person. So there you go.
And hear it. That's what, that was the best shadow person story I've ever heard.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
We nailed it. We did it, guys.
Yes.
Good job. Until next time, folks, remember, send in your stories to thegang@thefreakydeaky.com. Find us on social media at FreakyDeakyPod. If you have thoughts about this episode in particular, comment. We love talking to you guys. We love hearing your thoughts and everything like that. Share them with the show. Let's make this a communal effort.'t do it. In the meantime, be sure to sleep with the lights on, because you never know what's lurking in the shadows. We'll see you next time.
Be scared. I can tell you what's lurking in the shadows if you sleep with your lights on and you not sleep. It's going to be bad for you. It's going to be unhealthy. You're going to start seeing
Wow. Christian, very, very passionate about that.